So, ladies and gentlemen, before Space 1999, and a little bit after Star Trek went into syndication, there was a Canadian show that was trying to appeal to the same fans of what he called sci-fi, universal sci-fi. It was called the Starlost. Now, this wasn't a bad series, but it never gets any respect because other than Canada and the fans of CTV back in the day, it's not really look back with anger or fondness. It just happened to be a filler for certain stations who couldn't afford Star Trek. Now, The Starlost is a Canadian-produced science fiction television series created by writer Harlan Ellison and broadcast in 1973 on CTV in Canada and syndicated to local stations in the States. The show's setting is a huge generational colony spacecraft called Earthship Ark, which has gone off course. Many of the descendants of the original crew and colonists are unaware, however, that they are aboard the ship. The series experienced a number of production difficulties, and Ellison broke with the project before the airing of his first episode. Now, again, created by Harlan Ellison, who took his nom de plume Cordwainer Bird as, his name for the series. Written by Ellison, George Gent, Norman Kleinman, and Martin Leger. Directed by Harvey Hart, Martin Leger, George McCowan, Leo Ornstein, Ed Richardson, Joseph L. Scanlon, and starring of all people, Keir Delay of 2001 fame, Gay Rowan, and Robin Ward, the game show host and the later voice of the syndicated Twilight Zone series in Canada. 16 episodes, which is pretty good for CTV for a year. Now, in this series, in 2790, 405 years after the accident, Devon Keir Delay is a resident of Cypress Corners. Now, foreseeing destruction of Earth, humanity builds the multi-generational starship called Earthship Ark, 50 miles wide and 200 miles long. The ship contains dozens of biospheres, solid running style, each kilometers across and housing people of different cultures. Their goal is to find and see the new world of a distant star. In 2385, more than 200 years of the voyage, an unexplained accident occurs, and the ship goes in emergency mode, whereby each biosphere is sealed off from the others. Now, the Keir Delay, who plays Devon, is a resident of Cypress Corners, an agrarian community with a culture resembling that of the Amish, discovers that his world is far larger and more mysterious than he realized. Considered an outcast because he's questioning the way things are, especially his refusal to accept the arranged marriage of his love Rachel, Gay Rowan, to his friend Gart, played by Ward, Devon finds out that the Cypress Corners elders have been deliberately manipulating the local computer terminal, which they call the voice of the creator. The congregation pursues Devon for attacking the elders and stealing a computer cassette, of which they are recording their orders, and his leaders plot to execute him. But the elderly Abraham, who also questions the elders, gives Devon a key to a dark, mysterious doorway, which Abraham himself is afraid to enter. The frightened Devon escapes into the service areas of the ship and accesses a computer data station that explains the nature and purpose of the Ark and hints at the problems. When Devon returns to Cypress Corners to tell his community what he has learned, he is put on trial for heresy and condemned to death by stoning. Escaping on the night before his execution with the aid of Garth, Devon convinced Rachel to come with him, and Garth pursues them. When Rachel refuses to return with Garth, he joins her and Devon. Eventually, they make their way to the ship's bridge, containing the skeleton remains of its crew. It is badly damaged and the control systems are inoperative. The tree discovered that the Ark is a collision course with a Class G star similar to the Sun, and realized that the only way to save the Ark and its passengers is to find a backup bridge at the other end of the Ark and reactivate the navigation and propulsion systems. Now, getting to the other end of the Ark, which is potentially hundreds of miles away, involves traveling through the many disparate communities on the starship, some of which are hostile to outsiders, and all of which have different social customs, belief systems, and law enforcement practices. Generally, each episode will have Devon, Rachel, and Garth encountering a new society or group as they work their way through the ship. Occasionally, they are raided or hindered their travels by the ship's frustrating and only partially functioning computer system interface, known as Bu Lambda 165, portrayed by William Oster, who also provided the opening narration for each episode. Now, 20th Century Fox was all involved in the project with the great Douglas Trumbull as executive producer. Science fiction writer and editor Ben Vova was brought in as science advisor. So production companies, 20th Century Fox, CTV, and the great Glenn Warren Productions, 15-minute episodes. Now, Harlan Ellison was initially approached by Robert Klein, a 20th Century Fox television executive, to come up with an idea for the series. Now, Klein was at that point a producer. Now, the idea for a science fiction TV series for True Fox was to consist of 8 episodes to pitch to the BBC as a co-production in February 1973 because of the success of Doctor Who and other similar series. The BBC rejected the idea. Unable to sell the Starlost for prime time, Klein decided to pursue a low-budget approach and produce it for syndication. By May, Klein had sold the idea to 48 NBC stations and the Canadian CTV network. Now, Ellison claimed that to get Canadian government subsidies, the production was shot in Canada and Canadian writers produced the scripts from story outlines by Ellison. However, several produced episodes were written entirely by American writers. Now, before Ellison could begin work on the show's production Bible, a writer's strike began, running from March 6th to June 24th. Klein negotiated an exception with the Writers Guild on the grounds that the production was wholly Canadian, and Ellison went to work on a Bible for the series. Now, originally the show was to be filmed with special effects camera system developed by Trumbull called Magicam. The system comprised 2 cameras, the motion of which was controlled by servos. One camera would film actors against a blue screen, while the other would shoot a model background. The motion of both cameras were synchronized and scaled appropriately, allowing both the camera and the actors to move through model sets. The technology, however, did not work reliably. In the end, simple blue screen effects were used, forcing static camera shots. Now, the failure of the Magicam system was a major blow, as the Canadian studio space that had been rented was too small to build the needed sets. In the end, partial sets were built, but the lack of space hampered production. As the filming went on, Ellison grew heavily disenchanted with the budget cuts, details that were changed, and what he characterized as a progressive dumbing down of the story. Ellison's dissatisfaction extended to the new title of the pilot episode. He had titled it Phoenix Without Ashes, but it was changed to Voyage of Discovery. Now, before the production of the pilot episode was completed, Ellison invoked a clause in his contract to force the producers to use his alternate registered writer's name of Cordwain or Bird on the end credits. 16 episodes were made. Fox decided not to pick up the options for the remainder of the series. Now, on March 31st, 1974, in no surprise to many of his fans, Ellison received a Writers Guild of America Award for Best Original Screenplay for the original script. The pilot script was originally written, not the version that was filmed. A novelization of the script by Edward Bryant, Phoenix Without Ashes, was published in 1975. This contained a lengthy foreword by Ellison describing what had gone on in production. In 2010, the novel was adapted into comic book form by IDW Publishing. Now, Ben Bovin, in an editorial in Analog Science Fiction, June of 1974, and in interviews in fanzines, made it clear how disgruntled he had been as science advisor. In 1975, he published a novel entitled The Star-Cross, depicting a scientist taken on as a science advisor for a terrible science fiction series. Now, The Starlost has generally received a negative reception from historians of science fiction television. The Encyclopedia of Science Fiction described The Starlost as dire, while the best of science fiction TV, including The Starlost, in its worst science fiction shows of all time. Now, I saw it in first run, and all I can say is that every time I watched the episode, I slept well the next night and the night after that. There wasn't much going on. Now, obviously, when you're dealing with this, very episodic, okay? The Starlog Photo Guide TV Episode Guides, Volume 1, lists 2 unfilmed episodes as well, God That Died and People in the Dark. The later episode, written by Joel Savelson, follows Devin, Rachel, and Garth and discover a dome in which people have been living in the dark since the accident to the Ark. Episodes of the original series were broadcast in 1978 and further in 1982. A number of episodes were also edited together to create movie-length installments that were sold to cable television broadcasters in the late 1980s. So just a reminder, Starlost The Beginning, Voyage of Discovery, and the Goddess Calibara, The Starlost The Return, The Pisces and Farthing's Comet, The Starlost Deception, Mr. Smith of Manchester, and Gallery of Fear, The Starlost The Alien Oro, The Return of Oro, and The Starlost The Invasion, Astromedics, and the Implant People. You know, Starlost had 2 or 3 major incidents, or not the incidents, but major problems no offense, but Keir Delay sounds Canadian. Robin Ward sounds Canadian. So you're saying to yourself, why did you talking with a Canadian accent? Couldn't he found like a way to get actors that had more of a British accent or could fake it? But the idea is when something looks filmed on the cheap, it looks cheap, and this looked cheap. And compared to what Star Trek looked, multicolor, the RCA color palette, as we say, and how Space 1999 looked later on, which had some of the Star Trek crew, behind the scenes crew working on the series, it showed in. But, you don't call Keir Delay, we used to call him Dull, yeah. Anyway, now, all 16 episodes of the series were on time, available again on the VHS box set. The first DVD release was limited to 5 feature-length and the 5 feature-length edited versions. Now, in September-October 2008, the film was released on DVD by VCI Entertainment. Aside from the digitally remastered episode, a presentation reel created for potential broadcasters is also included. Hosted by Delay and Trumbull, and predating Ellison's departure, as he's credited under his own name with creating the series, the short feature includes sample footage using the later abandoned Magicam technology, some film special effects footage taken from other productions, along with model footage from the film Silent Running to represent the Earthship Arc concept and a different series logo. Again, the influence of Silent Running, which I saw one of the worst science fiction movies that put me to sleep before the movie was done. Again, it's the best ride home I ever had for the drive-in with my parents. I fell asleep on my owner's lap. Now, in early 2019, a Roku channel began airing the Starlost as its only program. But then again, you can get it on YouTube. And don't be surprised after you listen to this podcast, you go check it out. It's that, mediocre. Now, notable guest stars including Sterling Hayden as Jeremiah, Frank Converse as Dr. Gerald W. Hannon, the great John Colicos as Governor, Barry Morris, who's everywhere in this decade, as Shalif, Lloyd Bochner as Colonel M.P. Garraway, Diana Barrington as Captain Janice, great Simon Oakland as Dr. Asgard, Percy Rodriguez as I.E. Richards, Angel Tompkins as Daphne, Eddie Ames as President Mr. Smith, Alexandra Bastido as Y419B2 Idona, Antoinette Bauer as Dr. Heather Marshall, and Walter Koenig. Chicos as Aura of the Planet Xar, the 2-part episodes. Now, ironically, on Sci-Fi Channel right now in Canada, The Ark, a 2023 television series about a suspended animated human colony ship being sent to a nearby Sayre system from a dying 22nd century Earth, is getting good view on the channel. In this one, the colonists wake up after the ship's primary command crew have been killed in an unknown disaster while en route. Now, a big essay on the series is called Somehow I Don't Think We're in Kansas Anymore, Toto, which is an essay in Fantasia Press. Now, Television Obscurities already talk about it, and Starlost episodes, and Simon Fraser University research, and again, the Starlost has its own Roku channel, which launched 11 February 2019, give or take. So, ladies and gentlemen, Starlost, I give it 2 stars out of 5. I have to say, any show that puts John Colicos in Chekhov, and Keir Delay and Robert Ward, all these Canadian icons in the same series, can't be all that bad. John Colicos, of course, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Twilight Zone, Night Gallery. Robin Ward, the voice of the Night Gallery, the Canadian syndication. Koenig, of course, Star Trek, wrote one of the animated series, and the Keir Delay from 2001, considered one of the great young stars by the Golden Globes at one point. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here, we're Canadian Obscurities for television. I'm not going to do a podcast on Hanging In or Flappers or any of those other shows. Maybe the S&M comic book down the road. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Thanks for listening. Bye.